We're starting to see the impact of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs as they begin to hit the Canadian economy.
The cranes rise over Montreal, barges grind upriver. Across the frigid expanse of Hudson Bay, Indigenous personnel patrol the Churchill docks, measuring tides and fantasizing about container ships. In the northern Arctic, survey teams are laying out harbors where only icebreakers ever roamed. Canada is creating gateways. As trade battles clog U.S. ports and tariffs strangle long-standing supply lines, Canada is grabbing a once-in-a-generation opportunity to redraw the map of global trade. Expansions in Montreal and Contrecoeur offer millions more containers. The resurrection of Churchill creates a direct northern connection to Europe. And, as receding sea ice reveals new transport routes, Arctic port projects that were once a pipe dream have become strategic realities. It's not simply about moving products, it's about sovereignty, power, and survival in a divided society. Canada has watched Washington use tariffs on friends. It has caused supply chains to grind to a standstill at congested American ports. And now, Ottawa is taking action, with billions of dollars in investments to ensure that Canada's trade future is not dependent on U.S. politics. The golden age of U.S. port domination may be coming to an end, and Canada, quietly but firmly, is ready to take its place. For decades, the Port of Montreal has been the throbbing heart of Canadian trade. Every year, over 35 million tons of products flow through its terminals, connecting Canada with Europe, Asia, and beyond. However, by 2024, it was bursting at the seams. Congestion became so severe that firms explored rerouting cargo through American ports like Boston, New York, and even Norfolk. That seemed unimaginable for Canada, its major French-speaking metropolis and cultural hub at risk of economic bypass. Enter the Contrecoeur expansion, a $1.4 billion project located 40 kilometers downstream. It is expected to increase capacity by more than 1 million containers per year, promising not only growth, but also greener trade. Electric cranes, better fuels, and advanced logistics will reduce emissions and minimize delays. Ottawa has thrown its entire support behind the initiative. Infrastructure Minister Dominic LeBlanc describes it as nation-building. Former Bank of England Governor Mark Carney, who now advises the government, describes it as climate-proofing commerce. They've worked together to expedite approvals, with the goal of having them completed by 2030, or sooner if political pressure necessitates it. Contrecoeur is a beacon of hope for shipping. For Canada, it's a declaration that Montreal will not lose its crown. Instead, it will emerge as one of North America's greenest and most efficient ports, while rivals in the United States grapple with tariffs and political chaos. For more than a century, the majority of Canada's trade passed through the United States. Grain from Saskatchewan was transported by train to Minneapolis. Oil from Alberta is transported south to refineries in Texas. Even cargoes from Montreal frequently transit through American distribution centers before reaching international consumers. However, the trade war broke that comfort. Trump's 50% tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and agricultural imports caused shockwaves in Ottawa. Canada replied by imposing retaliatory taxes on American commodities ranging from whiskey to farm machinery. Suddenly, the economic marriage of convenience resembled an armed battlefield. For Canadian officials, the lesson was clear. Relying on U.S. ports and logistics is a liability. Every shipment that passed through New York or Seattle was vulnerable to U.S. politics. Each contract priced in U.S. dollars introduced extra risk. This is why port expansion is more than just infrastructure. It is a strategy. By increasing capacity in Montreal, Contrecoeur, Churchill, and the Arctic, Canada decreases its reliance on American choke points. European trade can proceed directly. Asian shipments can avoid U.S. bottlenecks. Even energy exports receive fresh lifelines that Washington cannot prohibit. The fallout is already obvious. Analysts believe that the United States loses billions of dollars every year in port fees and logistics contracts as Canada's trade routes shift northward. What previously flowed through American cities now constructs Canadian ones. And for Washington, seeing its neighbor becoming more independent isn't just upsetting. It's a sign that its hold on North American commerce is fading. Canada is not just expanding ports, it is redesigning them. Contrecoeur engineers are designing fully electrified cranes and hybrid tugboats. Shore power systems will allow ships to plug in, reducing diesel pollution. Logistics software will reduce idle hours, saving billions of dollars in global congestion. In Churchill, rail enhancements include hydrogen-powered locomotives. Arctic projects investigate renewable energy microgrids to support communities and lessen reliance on fuel imports. The vision is clear. Canadian ports will not only compete, but also lead the green transition. It's a stark contrast to the United States, where aging ports face delays, antiquated equipment, and rising pollution. Los Angeles and New York remain powerhouses, but they are hampered by bottlenecks and political disputes for modernization. By portraying itself as a sustainable trade leader, Canada is preparing its ports to secure future contracts in Europe and Asia, where low-carbon logistics are increasingly in demand. Shippers trying to decrease their carbon footprint view Canadian gateways as safer bets. Ottawa is spreading the impression that it is stronger, faster, and cleaner. And in a world where trade disputes and climatic concerns collide, global markets are ready to hear it. The world is following Canada's maritime transformation with great interest. In Brussels, EU leaders hail Montreal's growth as a fresh bridge to Europe. With CETA reducing tariffs, European businesses embrace the opportunity to ship goods directly through Canada, avoiding U.S. bottlenecks. Germany and France already have trade missions in Contrecoeur, looking for logistical hubs. Exporters in Africa are looking at Canadian ports as alternatives to entry locations in the United States. Grain from Manitoba, minerals from Quebec, and manufactured goods from Ontario may reach African markets faster through Canadian gateways than through American ones. However, not everyone is clapping. Washington is alarmed. Every shipment redirected to Canadian docks results in a revenue loss for U.S. ports, trucking companies, and railroads. Lawmakers warn of billions of dollars in lost fees and thousands of jobs moving north. Some even propose further duties to punish Canadian port subsidies, threatening further escalation. Russia and China are keenly following the Arctic projects. Moscow, which already dominates the Northern Sea Route, sees Canadian activity as competition. Beijing, eager to expand its Belt and Road into the Arctic, is assessing whether Ottawa's plans harm or complement its Polar Silk Road strategy. For allies, Canada is an emerging stabilizer. For rivals, it is a competitor. In any case, Ottawa has made the rest of the globe sit up and take note. What started as a defensive action against U.S. tariffs has evolved into a bigger plan for independence, sovereignty, and influence. Canada's port expansion is much more than just moving cargo, moving power. Trade that was previously routed through U.S. ports now goes directly to Europe and Asia. Indigenous-led projects such as Churchill combine reconciliation and resilience. Arctic expansions assert sovereignty over waters where Russia and China lurk. Green inventions also give Canada a moral advantage in an era when climate credibility is crucial. The trade battle revealed vulnerabilities. Canada transformed them into possibilities. And the question now is whether this wager will establish Canada as a true global hub, changing the balance of North American trade. Or will Washington reciprocate, determined to let its neighbor succeed at its expense? One thing is certain, the landscape of global trade is shifting. This time, Canada is drawing the lines. Let me know what you think down below in the comments.